I got to tell you, you had me at Soul Sister. I loved it. I was singing along from the beginning.
You know, if you look closely in that moment, and I'm remembering this now, I was like, we hint that Michael Barnett was a musician in his past. I also used to be a musician. So it's like, I think that Michael Barnett is not only singing along to Hey Soul Sister, I think he's singing the harmonies. I think that's what he's doing.
So
And they're like, all right, go for it. And then we really set the tone on that. We're like, okay, now I know who this guy is.
literally set the tone. It was
Yeah.
amazing. I love that because you see that music is kind of a catharsis
Mm-hmm.
for him.
Mm-hmm.
Find solace in it. As a musician, how much of yourself did you put into that?
As a musician, I put very little of myself into that. I know how to make harmonies, and that's pretty much where it ends. But as to the character, on the whole of Michael Barnett, I was definitely looking into the corners to find ways that I could connect. And the good news is this is really a story about bias and perspective that's told from so many different points of view. So what that allows you to do is create a really multifaceted character because he's a very different person in Christine's eyes than he is in his boy's eyes than he is in Natalia's eyes, right? And the whole filmmaking apparatus sort of supports that. A lot of times when I'm shot from like a low angle, high lit hero shot with good music, a lot of times when it feels a little villainy and a little, and the lighting helps you out with that. So that was fun to play in concert with all that. But the core of it for me was this decision to play into the mental health of the character of Michael, which is something I've dealt with my whole life. I know what that fragility feels like. I know that when you're in a good place in your life, like you're married, you got your kids, you got everything settled, you will do anything to hold on to it so that you do not upend on a bridge somewhere. And that to me was a direct connection into Michael and how he might behave in some of the horrific ways he ends up behaving.
He really lives his truth. I mean, that was one thing that you all did really spectacularly in this, is that you feel like every character is just living their version of the truth. Um, and it kind of makes you question, like, what is a good American family?
Mm.
You know, I'm wondering, like, what was that for you? Did that message in this kind of evolve for you?
In terms of what a good American
Good
family
American
is.
family, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't really think about it that way, but now that you bring that up, I think that there's one thing to look good in that great portrait picture and have that thing in the way that 1950s families used to be. It doesn't really matter how we feel or how dysfunctional we are, as long as that picture's hanging on the wall, we're going to be good. And there's a little bit of that going on in this house. And then you dig a little bit deeper and you see, there's a lot more complexity going on. Why do Christine and Michael want to adopt this girl? Is it because they just want to help her? Is part of it because Christine really feels like Michael needs this? Part of it because Christine has a hero complex because she already saved her boy, but she needs another project to work on to make her feel good about herself and her own ego? Is Michael doing this because he hopes it will be the glue that keeps the family together and he's desperately afraid to lose Christine, who he feels is losing interest in him and doesn't feel like he's a strong North American male and dad and husband? So then you realize there are all these selfish motivations involved in the seemingly altruistic, unselfish motivation of adopting a child. And then when that starts to unravel, that's really where I think the interesting parts of the story kind of come into play.
Well, and you're diving into a real person. You're
Mhm.
diving into a real story. How is that for you as an actor? Does that kind of change the way you approach a role?
Yeah, I haven't played that many real life characters on screen before. When it came to approaching Michael, it was made pretty evident to me that, this was going to be loosely based on Michael Barnett. We're going to be creating the character of Michael Barnett. We're going to take some liberties here. So that freed me up a little bit to bring some of the things that I felt I needed to do to make the story sing. But, I did make sure like I watched a little bit of the documentary. I wanted to see what the mannerisms were, see what I was either going to lean into or lean out of and make that choice. But this was not about doing an impression. This was really about creating a character.
Um, I'm curious too about just what you went through on set. Was
Mm.
there a moment that really stands out to you where you felt like, I don't know, that meant a lot to you in bringing this to life?
Yes. There's a moment in episode 5 where there's a tough moment between Michael Barnett and Natalia. And I'd grown so close to Imogen, who plays Natalia. We had such a fun, loving, supportive relationship. This is her first big role. She's doing an accent for the first time, doing new physicality for the first time. And I just wanted to be a good scene partner to her. And I had to do horrific things to her in this scene. And I remember I slammed the door and ran outside and they yelled, cut. And I ran in and we were both like teary-eyed and like gave each other this big hug because it was just like I didn't want to do that to you, you know? And it made me realize like what a good environment we had, you know, what a good leader we had in Ellen who was willing to be strong and opinionated, but also vulnerable, expressing her fear of playing her first big role outside of Grey's Anatomy, leading us in that way with the strength and the vulnerability. Emmy lighting us all up with the gratitude and the newness of being on set, reminding us we should be thankful to be here every day. You know, I really got lucky, you know, in a nice little soup of people.
You're quite an ensemble. There's one last question I'm dying to know. There is a scene in here that you asked the question, if you could be a donut, what donut would you be? So I want to know, Mark, what donut would you be?
So I'm a donut fanatic, by the way. And I am not pleased with this new fangled movement of these fancy donuts with like bacon on top and like here's the cheesecake donut. I'm just like, can we just do a fucking glazed donut, you guys? Like, what's wrong with a fucking just straight up glazed donut? And that's what I want to be. At the end of the day, at my funeral, it's just like, you know what? Solid, good glazed donut. He was always there for us.
I applaud that. Good choice.
Good choice. Also, I love a fucking honey bun, but whatever.
You
Go with
know,
the glaze.
yeah,
Yeah.
Boston
Yeah.
cream also, but
Yeah.
glazed all the way. I'm
Yeah.
a glazed girl all the way too. So,
Yep. Yep.
Mark, it was awesome to hang out with you today. Uh,
Cheers. Same to you.
thanks for taking the time.
All right. See you next time.